Have you ever noticed that when a loved one enters the final stage of life, the body often sends out quiet signals? Signals so subtle that if we are not attentive, we easily miss them? The heartbreaking truth is that most families only recognize them when it's already too late. Medical research from Mayo Clinic to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, points out that there are 5 silent signs indicating that the body is slowly approaching its final chapter. But what struck me the most is this. I've seen these very signs within my own family, and it made me realize something important. Recognizing them early is not about fear, but about loving more deeply while there is still time. So, what is the first sign? One that almost every family has witnessed? A noticeable decline in eating and drinking. I remember Mr. George, 88, from Texas. All his life, he adored his wife's chicken soup. No dinner in their home ever felt complete without that familiar aroma. But one day, he began skipping meals. At first, the family thought it was just fatigue or maybe trouble chewing. Yet over time, missing one meal turned into missing 2, and eventually, for an entire week, he lived only on sips of water and a few spoonfuls of thin porridge. Doctors explain that when the body approaches the end of life, organs naturally begin to slow down. The stomach struggles to digest, taste diminishes, and the sense of hunger nearly disappears. For family members, watching this change is incredibly painful. After all, food has always been tied to living, to joy, to gathering together. But for the one whose body is weakening, this is actually a natural way the body begins preparing for departure. If you are caring for a parent or grandparent and notice they are eating less and less, remember this. Forcing food is not the solution. Instead, create a space that feels comfortable. Prepare light, easy-to-digest meals, and most importantly, sit beside them and share the moment. Often, what they need isn't a full bowl of rice, but the feeling of being loved and accompanied. And that was only the first sign. But there is another one, even easier to overlook, when your loved one begins to sleep much more and seems less alert. After Mr. George began skipping meals, my family noticed something else. He was spending nearly the entire day asleep. Some days, he would only open his eyes for a few minutes before drifting back into slumber. If he once enjoyed baseball games or listening to the radio, now even the sound of the TV couldn't catch his attention. This worried everyone. We all thought that sleeping so much must surely mean his illness was worsening. But the doctor explained, when the body nears its final stage, excessive sleep is not necessarily bad. It is a natural process. As the body weakens and energy fades, the brain chooses to rest more often to lessen the burden. I still remember Mrs. Alice, 91, an old family friend in Florida. She used to be a teacher, and she loved to read. Yet in her last months, the book on her nightstand remained untouched, never turned to the next page. When her daughter visited and asked, "Mom, would you like me to read to you?" she simply smiled and whispered, "No need, dear. I just want to close my eyes for a little while." It sounds heartbreaking, but the truth is, this was not indifference. This was her way of feeling peace in her final stage, through sleep. For loved ones, it may feel like they are slipping further away, but in reality, sleep is the body's gentlest form of preparation for departure. The advice here: if you see your parent, grandparent, or loved one sleeping more and more, don't wake them repeatedly just to keep them active or normal like before. What they need most isn't a rigid routine. It is a peaceful rest, undisturbed, and a gentle hand holding theirs as they drift into sleep. And then, when eating and sleeping have already changed, another sign often shakes families the most. The body becomes visibly weak, movements slow, and even standing becomes a struggle. I still remember so clearly one afternoon, watching Mr. George trying to rise from his familiar armchair in the living room. Before, with just a gentle push on the armrest, he could stand and walk out to the garden. But that day, he wobbled, gripping the chair for a long time, unable to straighten his back. I rushed to help, and in that moment, I felt his hands trembling, so frail it seemed they no longer had the strength to hold on. That was when I understood. His body no longer had the power to fight. Weakness and difficulty walking weren't just signs of normal aging anymore. They were signals that his life energy was quietly fading. Another story I once heard from Mrs. Mary, 87, in Texas, left a lasting impression too. For years, she faithfully walked her neighborhood every morning. But at 87, her balance faltered. Her legs no longer obeyed. She confided to her daughter, "I'm afraid one day I'll fall and won't be able to get back up." And indeed, just months later, she no longer had the strength to leave her bed. Not long after, her time gently came to an end. It sounds heartbreaking, but this is one of the most important signs families must notice. When a loved one suddenly weakens, when they no longer walk steadily or tire after just a few steps, this is the body's quiet message that the final stage may be near. The advice here: make them feel safe. Prepare a warm, supportive space. Ensure the bed is firm, and add chairs or railings so they don't fear falling. And above all, remind them, through every action, that even if their legs can no longer carry them, your love and care will hold them up in every step of their final journey. And then, as the body weakens, another sign emerges, just as striking. Breathing becomes difficult, with irregular rhythms. This is often the moment when families feel the fragility of life most intensely. I remember sitting beside Mr. William, a 91-year-old veteran. The small room was hushed, and the only sound was his breathing, slow, heavy, deliberate. At times, it broke into gasps, as if he was fighting just to take in one more breath. Then suddenly, his breathing sped up, rapid and shallow, before pausing completely for several seconds, leaving everyone at his side holding their breath too. This is not the ordinary tiredness after a long day. It is a sign that the body is preparing to close the final chapter of life. Breath is life itself, so when breathing becomes heavy, shallow, or fades into long pauses, it means inner energy is ebbing away. Doctors call this pattern Cheney-Stokes breathing, an irregular rhythm often seen in those nearing the end. The story of Mrs. Linda, 85, in Florida, is one her family will never forget. She had always been strong, but one day her son noticed her breath grew raspy. She had to pause mid-sentence just to catch air. At first, everyone thought it was pneumonia or simple fatigue, but the doctor was candid. This was a clear sign her body was growing weaker. Only a few weeks later, she passed peacefully in her sleep, gentle, but leaving her loved ones stunned. It may sound heartbreaking, but understanding this is profoundly important. Because when breathing changes, family members can respond, not with fear, but with presence. Create a quiet, calm space. Sit near them. Sometimes, simply holding their hand or whispering a word of comfort is enough to remind them they are not alone on their final journey. And then, as breathing becomes fragile, another sign often follows: changes in communication. Words grow sparse, sentences slow down, or sometimes fall silent altogether. One of the most difficult signals for families to witness is when a loved one begins to withdraw from conversation. Mr. Robert, 87, in California, had once been the storyteller at every dinner table, filling meals with laughter. But in his final months, he only offered a faint smile, no longer engaging in long exchanges. Alongside the silence, the mind itself began to wander. At times, he called his granddaughter by the name of his long-departed sister. Other times, he gazed out the window and said he saw his mother waiting there, though she had passed away decades before. Doctors reassured his family. This was not full dementia, but the brain's gentle retreat, returning to familiar memories as a way of preparing for departure. Another story comes from Mrs. Linda, 90, once a beloved elementary school teacher. She had always enjoyed asking about her former students whenever they visited, but later, she would simply sit quietly, holding their hands, rarely forming clear sentences. Her daughter shared, "It was as if Mom no longer needed to talk. She just wanted to be with us, in silence." And in that moment, the family realized, love does not always need words. Sometimes, presence itself is the deepest farewell. When a loved one speaks less, withdraws from conversation, or drifts into memories long past, it is not coldness. It is a quiet signal that they are letting go, not with fear, but with peace. My dear friend, we've just walked together through 5 quiet signs that may signal when a loved one is entering their final year of life. These are the moments when they begin to sleep more, when their body grows weak and struggles to move, when their breathing changes, when their words become fewer, and when their mind drifts back to distant memories. These signs are not here to frighten you. They are here to prepare you, to help you love more deeply, more gently, and with your full presence beside those you hold dear. Because when we realize time is short, every simple moment, a glance, a hand held, a quiet "I love you," becomes a treasure beyond measure. Remember, death is not an ending, but a transition. And it is your love, your forgiveness, your presence that will be the final gift they carry with them. Before we part, I want to ask you something. If you are caring for an aging parent, grandparent, or loved one, which of these 5 signs have you noticed most clearly? Leave the number in the comments. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, so we can share and lift each other up. And if you found this video meaningful, please hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend, because someone you know may be searching for the comfort and clarity that this message can bring. In the next video, we'll talk about a subject that has led many older women into heartbreak. 5 painful mistakes widowed women must avoid. And believe me, this lesson isn't only for women. Men, too, can learn from it, so that we can better protect and cherish the ones we love. I'll see you there. Don't miss it, because it just might change the way you look at aging, love, and life after loss.